Today's episode begins with the Great War. We see King Raven and Ritz fighting against the enemy armies. Then we see Russell ordering the infantry to retreat so that the archers can advance. The archers then launch their arrows at the enemy. Charlotte uses her magic, causing a huge explosion. We then see Eris standing by the window, narrating that the enemy's army was twice the size of Canari's. But due to the incredible performance of Louven's forces led by his father, they managed to capture the fortress in the end. The campaign lasted over a month, and his father returned 4 days after Eris's 12th birthday. The scene shifts to Eris's father lying in bed, with his wife and children by his side, looking sorrowful due to his poor health. We then see Eris approaching Ritz and Charlotte, welcoming them. Ritz is surprised to see Eris with wounds on his face. Eris explains that the wounds are from training. He then asks about his father's condition. Ritz tells him that his father's performance in the battle was impressive, but the illness took over once the fighting ended, causing him to collapse. The long battle and his already deteriorating health affected him negatively. Eris feels sad and says it's his fault for not going with him. Ritz reassures him that it's not true. King Raven's health was already failing, and Eris is not to blame. Eris thanks him for his kind words and asks him to inform him of any changes in his father's condition. Ritz asks where he is going, and Eris replies that he is going to train. We then see Russell asking Ritz and Charlotte if they think Lord Eris will be all right. Charlotte mentions that someone told her Eris has been pushing himself through very rigorous daily training and hopes he doesn't end up bedridden as well. As they descend the stairs, they hear someone knocking on the door. Lady Alicia enters, apologizing for coming so late and asking about Eris. Ritz asks her what the matter is. She explains that she is very worried about Eris because they had been exchanging letters, and he always wrote warmly and sincerely. However, since the start of the recent conflict, his letters have lacked the emotion they used to convey. Ritz approaches her and says, "Please don't feel offended, Lady Alicia, but Lord Eris has his reasons." Alicia becomes agitated and tells him she won't be offended but is deeply concerned for Eris. Ritz explains that Lord Eris feels inadequate for staying at home and guilty for potentially worsening Lord Raven's condition. Alicia feels sad that she couldn't help Eris in his time of need, despite being his fiancée. She then asks where she can find Eris. The scene shifts to Alicia entering the training ground and seeing Eris training with his instructor. The instructor tells Eris that his body cannot handle any more physical training. Eris protests and tries to get up from the ground to resume training, saying that his father fought bravely even in his worst condition, and he wants to become like him and be able to protect everyone. Seeing this, Alicia closes the training ground door and tells Ritz and the others that now is not the right time to talk to Eris. Suddenly, a maid arrives and informs them that King Raven has regained consciousness. Everyone is overjoyed, and Russell wants to tell Eris that his father has regained consciousness. However, the maid stops him, saying that King Raven wants to speak to them alone first. In those moments, the three of them entered, and he said to them, "Finally, you have arrived. It seems I have collapsed and caused you trouble once again, my children. But I thank you for your excessive care for me." Everyone looked at him, then thought to themselves, "We have never seen him like this before. Has fainting made him lose his mind?" The Lord understood that they were talking about him, and that he was speaking to them very calmly. So he said to them, "I am not speaking to you as your..." Ritz asked. "What do you mean by this, my lord?" The Lord Raven said. "What do you think of your lives here?" They looked at each other and said, "It is like paradise compared to our previous lives. This is really like heaven." Then the Lord said to them, "I have summoned you here because there is something I need to tell you. The bitter and difficult truth is that I will not live much longer." Ritz looked at him, very shocked, and said, "Impossible. It can't be true." The Lord replied, "Nothing is impossible, my friend. Lifespans are in the hands of God Almighty, and no one knows what they will gain tomorrow, and no one knows in which land they will die. But I believe I know my body better than anyone else. My body has aged a lot, so please let me say this while I still can." Then he began to speak. "I didn't know what to do with you when Eris first brought you here. You, Ritz, were from the commoners. Charlotte, you were a woman, and you, Russell, were only 5 years old at the time. Yet all of you have become pillars supporting our region. You are the foundation of this country. I am grateful for your coming to the House of Loven and proud of you all. But I want to ask a favor of you concerning Aris. He is not strong enough for the battlefield. Assigning leadership to him now is a very harsh matter. Nearing death makes a person realize how many things they have left unfinished. I should have taken him to the battlefield while I was still in good health and taught him the harsh realities of the world while I could still protect him from them. But now it is too late. I beg you, the three of you, to support Aris with all the strength you have. I am not asking you this as your lord, but as a kind and loving father. I may be an emotional father, but he is a good boy and beloved by our people. He also possesses the ability to see the potential in others. As you have proven, he is truly a son to be proud of. Then the Lord begins to cry intensely and says to them, please. At that moment, everyone starts crying, sorrow evident on their faces. Russell, still crying, speaks first. I would have continued facing criticism if it weren't for Aris. Now I will study harder and harder to help my lord Aris, who has given me complete confidence. Then Charlotte, placing her hand on Russell's head, says, I don't know much about the affairs of the region, but I want to see the future he is trying to achieve. Aris is the one who gave my life meaning. There is no need for you to even ask us to take care of him. We will care for him without you having to tell us, and I will not serve anyone else but him. Ritz then speaks. I share her sentiment. If anyone threatens my lord Aris, I will fight, even if everyone else perishes and I am the last one standing. I will never abandon him. I have sworn to fight for my lord Aris, no matter the outcome. They all salute him, crying intensely. Ritz then asks, may I make a request, Lord Raven? All this while, Alicia, Aris's fiancée, stood by the door, crying as she listened to everything. Ritz opens the door and says to her, Lord Raven wishes to speak with you, Lady Alicia. She enters and everyone else leaves. She salutes him and begins to introduce herself. The Lord says to her, do you remember the first time we met? She looks at him puzzled and says, have we met before? He replies, yes, I was the one who arranged your engagement to my son, Aris. He begins to recall and says to her, when I first saw you, I thought you were a very spoiled child. But I quickly realized that your kindness runs very deep. I remember thinking that I wanted someone like you by Aris's side. Raven then tells her the lands of the House of Loven are very small, and my son may never be relied upon. Alicia, crying, responds, there is no doubt that your son Aris's kindness may make him seem weak, but he tries with all his might to overcome that, and he will become more like you as he grows. Raven understands that she loves Aris deeply with all her heart and thanks her for standing by him. He then asks her to call Aris. Alicia exits to Ritz and tells him what Lord Raven requested. Russell quickly goes to call. Meanwhile, Ritz stands still, remembering his lord before he became so ill, and continues to cry over his condition. Then the scene shifts to Raven in his room when Aris enters, very excited because he learned that his father had regained consciousness. He rushes to him and asks about his condition. His father replies that he is fine and then apologizes for summoning him at such a time. Aris says that he has conducted all kinds of research about his illness while he was in the battle, and there are herbal treatments he would like to try, as he heard there is a skilled doctor in a neighboring county. His father interrupts him and tells him that he has matured a lot. When he was his age, he decided to become a warrior for the first time. He was not born in Lamberge, but in a remote farming village in the province of Messian, where the lord of that area was a tyrant who imposed merciless taxes, forcing people to live in poverty. Raven couldn't bear it, so he ran away from home and went to the city when he was 10 years old. On the day he arrived, the ruler of Messian happened to be visiting. He wasn't sure of the reason. Perhaps the local lord was hosting a party. His memories of that time are vague, but one thing he remembers clearly is that the governor's majesty and grandeur made his heart beat intensely. At that moment, he decided to become a man like him. He wanted to become a man capable of ruling and leading several soldiers. He learned the sword on his own and became a soldier, fighting with all his might. His actions were recognized by the people, and he was appointed by Lord Lomer. After that, he got his own region. Time flies in the blink of an eye. His followers, his homeland, and his family. Everyone living in Lambert is a treasure from his perspective, as he dedicated his life to protecting them. Raven then starts coughing, and Aris becomes worried about him. His father tells him that he understands very well that Eris feels responsible for his condition, but he is wrong. Raven chose to live this way, and there is no need to feel responsible at all. However, he begs him to take care of everything for him. Eris promises that he will do so, and Raven is happy because he sees a better look on his son's face. He then says that he thinks being his son was a great burden on him. Eris asks him not to say that because he is very happy to be his son. After that, his father asks about Alicia. She is a force to be reckoned with, and it must be her mother's lineage more than Hammond's influence. Eris asked, "Were you friends with Lord Hammond?" His father replied, "Yes. When I was 16 years old, Lord Lomer ordered us to participate in a training battle." Then Eris continued, "We ended up talking all night long." The next morning, Eris's father passes away. He speaks to the townspeople, crying, "My father taught me many things and was an amazing man. He spoke with me the night before his death and entrusted me with all of you. I am not as strong as my father, but I swear to care for you more than anyone else, just as he did, and to protect you. So I ask for your help." Everyone cries, and a man speaks up, "I will do anything for you, and we will protect you instead of Lord Raven." Charlotte then remembers when they were in battle. She was fighting with all her might, but Lord Raven spoke to her, saying, "Rest a little. Save this effort for when Eris is on the battlefield." Next, we see Russell crying, remembering Lord Raven. One day, Russell was studying late, and Raven asked him, "Why are you staying up so late?" Russell replied, "I wish to be useful to Eris as soon as possible." Raven responded, "You are still just a child. You have plenty of time to grow and mature. Don't pressure yourself too much. Take your time to grow alongside Eris." Alicia also remembers Lord Raven telling her, "Stay close to Eris and support him." She cries as well, saying, "Forgive me if this is an inappropriate feeling, but I am happy to be here now." Eris is overjoyed and thanks them all. Then he says to himself, "I hope you are watching over us, Father." After that, he tells everyone that he will be the head of the Loven family starting today, and the legend of the Loven family begins now. The scene then shifts to a man saying, "The ruler of Messian was assassinated, killed by his son during a succession dispute." A girl approaches them and says, "I want to hear more about this. Maybe you can buy me a drink now." This concludes today's episode of the anime. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes, so don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell to receive all the latest updates.